Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. I'm really excited to talk to you about Tucker Carlson here in just a minute. We got a story about him. I'm asking this question: is he courageous patriot or right-wing hack? And let me tell you, so you don't misunderstand me, I'm voting on the courageous patriot, but there's an opinion piece here that kind of makes it out that he is somewhat of a right-wing hack. I'm a big fan of Tucker's. We're going to talk about him in just a moment. And then Joe Biden, this is coming to you from none other than David Axelrod. I'll tell you about David Axelrod in just a minute, but he's written an opinion piece, and it's pretty good. I agree with a lot of it, unfortunately so, and you'll understand why I say that in just a minute. But he is basically saying that Joe Biden is having his peacock moment. In other words, he's all bright and bushy-tailed, and who gave it to him? The Republicans in Congress. That's who, and we're going to talk about that. But before we go any further, we got to talk about the deals you can find, the opportunities here. I have a great opportunity for you. Look above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it. Click on the link BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited. They are your go-to place for Second Amendment headquarters. I call it that because not only do they defend your Second Amendment on a daily basis, but they give you factory direct pricing on anything to do with the Second Amendment. Guns, ammunition. Yes, I said guns and ammunition in stock, delivered directly to your door at factory direct pricing, as well as over 100,000 related items. You cannot go wrong if you're interested in purchasing Second Amendment items. Then Big Daddy Unlimited. If you want to see just how great a deal you can get, check out the show that precedes us, Denny's Deals. Denny comes across John Martin Talks Facebook channel. He also comes across our excluded Facebook site. Get to excluded by spelling excluded. Drop the E, spell it starting with a big X, excluded. What Denny does, he comes on 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, an hour before we do. He takes a product or products from the Big Daddy Unlimited arsenal. He demonstrates and talks about them. Then he gives you the factory direct pricing on those items. Once you see how much money you can save, you're going to want to go immediately above our video again, click on the link, follow the instructions, and get those pricing delivered directly to your door. You can't go wrong. I've been telling you this for a week or two now, but Christmas is literally around the corner, and nothing says I love you than a little pocketbook pistol, maybe a 38 snub nose, maybe a 22, something like that. Ammunition for the gun that your loved one already has. Put that in a stocking stuffer, and you will be quite popular. You will be the real Santa Claus, or at least the one your family will love and meet. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show. Let me take a quick little sip. If you're wondering what, I haven't talked to it about it, but if you're wondering what this says, it says, I want you on my side of the wall, Donald Trump. My lovely wife gave me that Father's Day a couple years ago, man. I'll never forget. You want to know how, I hadn't said this in a while, but you want to know just how Trumponian I am? Because people talk about, because sometimes I'll say things, but I'm all about, I got a man crush on Donald Trump. I literally spent my honeymoon at Trump's inauguration. My wife and I went up there to Trump's inauguration. He got inaugurated on the 20th. We got married on the 10th. So we went up. We've been up together for a while. So that's how Trumponian my family is. What did Chris Christie, I talked about that the other day. He said, Trump supporters get in line behind me. And I said, yeah, at the Golden Corral. But anyway, I digress. I do that from time to time. Let's check this story out. This comes to you via NBC News. Tucker Carlson, January 6th documentary was a new low, while Fox News doesn't care. Listen to this. This is old Tucker Carlson. I told you I'm a big fan of Tucker. I have not seen this 3-part documentary. I've seen excerpts from it, so I'm not going to lie to you about it. But I have heard Tucker talk about it extensively. And on one of his shows, he talked about how stuff like this article here has started criticizing him before the shows even aired. But check this out. Fox News host Tucker Carlson new three-part documentary on the January 6th insurrection began airing last week on Fox Nation, Fox's subscription streaming service. The documentary has generated condemnation from across the political spectrum for its untruths. Untruths. Now keep in mind, this is coming from NBC. NB-dadgum-C. They have the audacity. I mean, it is really rich when NBC, really all these networks, but NBC talks about something being untrue and how it needs to be eliminated from the air. Have you ever heard of this guy named Brian Williams? Ring a bell? I think he's Canadian, but Brian Williams was the face of NBC News, got caught flat-footed in basically a stolen valor lie, and not only did he not get fired, he got taken off the NBC primetime, but he's still being paid millions of dollars, and he's on, I think, MSNBC now. Still got his own show, still does a lot of their election night coverage. I mean, he is a major figure at NBC, and this dude had to come forward and admit that he was telling one of the worst lies you could tell, which I would put it under the column or category of stolen valor. Let's listen to this news report of about 2 or 3 minutes long that kind of gives you the gist of what I'm talking about. And if you haven't seen this, once you see this, you will, whether you like Tucker Carlson or not, you have to admit it's pretty rich for NBC to talk about untruths. Check it out.
I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft. This was a bungled attempt by me to thank one special veteran.
One of America's best-known newsmen has been caught in a high-profile falsehood. Brian Williams apologized in Wednesday's newscast. Here's the segment from last Friday that got him in trouble.
The story actually started with a terrible moment a dozen years back during the invasion of Iraq, when the helicopter we were traveling in was forced down after being hit by an RPG.
The military newspaper Stars and Stripes was the first to report the story Wednesday, quoting a former U.S. Army flight engineer who said Williams and his camera crew were actually aboard a Chinook in a formation that was about an hour behind the 3 helicopters that came under fire. Williams is blaming the whole thing on a foggy memory, saying in a written apology Wednesday that in the 12 years since, his memory of the event had evolved. It's true that NBC archives show Williams' original report noted it was the lead helicopter, not his chopper, that was hit by an RPG. But by March 2013, Williams was recounting a different version of the story in some vivid detail to David Letterman.
2 of our 4 helicopters were hit by ground fire, including the one I was in.
No kidding.
RPG and AK-47.
What happens the minute everybody realizes you've been hit?
We figure out how to land safely, and we did.
Williams said Wednesday he never would have intentionally made this mistake and promised no one's trying to steal anyone's valor. For Newsy, I'm Zach Toombs.
Wow, think about that. I mean, there he is on David Letterman saying that he got shot at, and David Letterman said, well, what happens once you get shot at? He literally, I mean, foggy memory. He's sitting there telling you that what you do is you try to figure out how to land. He wasn't even shot at, let alone hit. Oh, my Lord. And talk about foggy memories. I guess this happens with all these political people, all these dadgum progressive leftists. Remember Hillary Clinton with her foggy memory? She actually said that when she landed in Kosovo that she had to duck down when she was Secretary of State from the snipers fighting. Now, first of all, we should have known that was untrue because there ain't a sniper alive that couldn't hit Hillary Clinton. I can tell you that. We should have known it was bullshit then. But she said she had to duck down from the bullet fire. In fact, when she actually landed in Kosovo, and I guess I should have played that video, she's met with children with flowers and candy. But I mean, good old God almighty, man. These people lie. It's just a matter of fact with them. Yet they're going to say that Tucker Carlson is putting out untruths. Oh, my Lord. And there's just so many examples. I mean, CNN has lionized Dan Rather, who got fired from CBS for creating a totally false story, had to come clean on it about George W. Bush. I mean, these people, man, they have, as my wife would tell you all the time, they have no shame. NPR media reporter David Falcon Flick. What a name. I mean, I guess if you're going to be in TV, that might be Falcon. There's a joke in there somewhere, but we'll let it pass. NPR media reporter David Falkenfick, to pick just one example, labeled it a pretty dark and often fact-free, talking about Tucker Carlson's documentary. Its critics have blasted the documentary's false claim that the insurrection was a false flag or a honeypot. A honeypot, is that something like, Swalwell's deal when he was screwing that Fang Bang Fang or whatever that was? Staged by former President Donald Trump's foes in National Security Agency that left-wing group Antifa smear Trump backers. So they're basically saying, and I'm not saying that it's saying this is their interpretation, that Tucker Carlson is saying that the whole January 6th thing was a effort to smear Donald Trump backers, right? Well, one thing we know for sure is that January 6th has been used to smear Donald Trump and all who support him. There's no doubt about that. The media, they don't want to report any facts other than, it was MAGA people coming in there. Remember, and we've played the video before, we're not going to play it on this, where there was a video, a series of them actually, that the Biden administration refused to release and had to be ordered by none other than the U.S. Supreme Court to release them. And all they showed was people coming in and, as Candace Owens said, basically having granny selfies with, I want to give her credit for that. She said it on Tucker Carlson, by the way, that, these people coming in, we've showed it before, but where they basically, you talk about a peaceful protest. I'm not condoning them going into the Capitol, but it was pretty dadgum peaceful. Nobody was under any threat there. Back to this story. The documentary's willingness to peddle falsehoods, talking about Tucker's documentary, and incendiary claims along with Carlson's treatment of COVID-19 vaccines. This is how they're basically describing Tucker Carlson's show, in their opinion, that has spread anti-vaccine falsehood. That's just untrue. That is absolutely untrue. Tucker Carlson has had extremely, and I video record his show every night so I don't miss it, and I watch it. I'll tell you the truth, impartial in preparation for what I do here. I like to hear what he's got to say and some of his guests, and I can tell you that the people he has put on about COVID-19, have they asked questions? Have they presented alternative views? Yes, but they also talk pro-vaccine and everything else. They're just trying to get actual information. Do you remember, and I've said this before, but if I say it, it bears repeating, the thing that shocks me the most about the science of COVID-19, and I'm not giving scientific advice, I'm just simply pointing out something, is that you cannot ask a question about it. They say follow the science, but if you ask a question, follow the science. Well, what about follow the science? I mean, there is no science without what? A question. A scientific method depends on a question. You cannot have science without a question. And there is no such thing as the word settled science. You'll never hear a true scientist actually saying that unless they're being paid to say it, I guess. Because there's no settled science. That doesn't mean that there's any invalidity into what they're talking about. It simply means that science is always progressive. It's always, when you come up with one solution, it brings up two questions. It's always asking questions. It's always evolving. If it's not science. There is no absolute, right? Raising questions about the safety and efficacy of vaccines, I just told you that's BS. Hosting vaccine skeptics, maybe. Claiming the efforts to vaccinate people or mandate vaccines amounted to social control. Well, who can deny that? And encouraging people to defy mandates, I think that's a little overstatement. And race, he traffics in white national claims. So they're saying Tucker Carlson is a racist, right? I can tell you, no one has a more diverse group of people on his show, race, creed, or color, than Tucker Carlson. I mean, he really literally puts everybody on there. And he will put anybody on there at any time. And it says have promoted that all of this has prompted demands that Fox executives rein in their star host or even fire him, which we know that to be true. Yet the highly promoted release of Carlson's documentary clearly exposes the network's calculation. Well, they talk about untruths. That description of Tucker Carlson's show is full of so many untruths, it's hard to even talk about them all. Back to this story. It says, talking about Tucker, let him do his thing is good for the bottom line, talking about Fox's, and that is what matters. Wow. Okay. So so they're saying Fox News thinks of profit above all else. They definitely think about profit. There's no question about that. All these news is all about making money. It didn't used to be that way. You know, like the old CBS with Walter Cronkite, stuff like that, used to be lost leaders. It was kind of a public service. You weren't really a true network unless you had a news bureau. But news bureaus did not make money. That changed with, quite frankly, Ted Turner and the CNN model. That's what kind of changed it. And CNN is not like it was back then. But this idea that Fox is uniquely about trying to make money and is willing to lie, is what they're insinuating, is nonsense. All you got to do is look at this gal right here. Do you know who that is? That's one and only Rachel Maddow. Now, she literally made a living with the Russia hoax, right? And what we're finding out now, my producer and I were just talking about it before the show, he was talking about the Durham report and how, you know, it's bringing out all of this stuff, and we're finding out that the Russia was not only a hoax, but it was pretty much totally orchestrated by the Hillary Clinton campaign, and Rachel Maddow spent hours upon hours. She literally did whole shows for 2 years on nothing but this. And here's the thing. They knew it was a lie when they were putting it up there. They didn't care because the ratings were up at all-time highs, and they were raking in, you know, it was making it rain on Rachel Maddow, and apparently she likes the rain on, but they knew that it was a hoax. Excuse me. I guess I got excited thinking about Rachel Maddow getting rained on, but some of us are sicker than others. But here's the thing. I don't talk about the whole Durham report very much. I've said this quite a bit in the last year or so. Not because I don't want to see the perp walk, you know, the thing over the head, the hand behind the back. I just don't think the rats are going to convict the rats. Until we actually see some significant figures, and I'm not saying there's not credibility to Durham. Don't misunderstand me. I just don't know what's going to happen. If you're waiting for all of a sudden, breaking news, Hillary Clinton arrested, don't hold your breath. Back to this story. While Fox calls itself a news network, man, there's a shot, right? It is a business first and foremost. They all are. I hate to break it to you, they all are. Claims about journalistic responsibility, morality, or the public good matter far less than profit margins. I'm sure that ebbs and flows depending on who we're talking about, and it's probably an opinionated thing nonetheless. And in the world of increasing competition, Carlson's often hard-edged conspiracy and falsehood-laden right-wing populism is good for making money. What they're talking about is all of these competitors for, if you want to call it right of center or right-wing, however you want to call it, media. Fox used to kind of stand alone. They literally invented it, right? But they used to stand alone. Now you have people like me, you know, and you have stuff like OAN and America's Voice News, which I hadn't talked about lately, but our show is actually podcast on America's Voice News. Check it out. You can get it on their streaming service. We're under their shows tab. You might petition them to put us on live, but we're on there anyway. We're also another great way, while I'm at it, to look at our podcast beyond like on Rumble, which, by the way, we're rocking on Rumble right now, live streaming. Howdy, how are you guys? Glad to have you. But you can go to your app store and get the Excluded app. By that, I mean spell excluded by dropping the E, put the big X up there, Excluded app on your cell phone. You will get not only our show, some original program, but shows from all over the country, including things like the Hodge Twins. It's part, I'll give you a little teaser, of a new social media platform that will be unveiled in the not too distant future, Excluded app. But this whole thing, they talk about right-wing populism. Yes, they're getting competition. Fox is getting competition. And yes, the streaming service is a way to circumvent that more, or to, you know, help with that more in a little bit. But translation, if you watch the show, if you watch MSNBC, you will see they're doing the same thing. They talk about reaching out to a small sliver of people. Listen to this. It's a little bit lengthy, but we've played it before. I call it the Scary American Flags video. This is on an NBC network, the MSNBC, and they're interviewing this lady about what she sees and what scares her, and about why they need a January 6th commission. Check it out.
I think this is another area where Democrats really need to get serious about talking about what this threat is. I think you said it really well, Joe, a minute ago, where you talked about the need to stop being surprised by all of this and start taking it seriously. You know, it's really concerning to me that the Democrats haven't just gone ahead at this point and said we're doing this on our own in terms of getting a commission together to explain to the American people how we allowed the insurrection to take place in the Capitol. I think that really needs to move forward swiftly. You know, the reality is here that we have a large percentage of the American population. I don't know how big it is, but we have tens of millions of Trump voters who continue to believe that their rights as citizens are under threat by simple virtue of having to share the democracy with others. I think as long as they see Americanness as the same as one with whiteness, this is going to continue. We have to figure out how to get every American a place at the table in this democracy, but how to separate Americanness, America, from whiteness. Until we can confront that and talk about that, this is really going to continue. I was on Long Island this weekend visiting a really dear friend, and I was really disturbed. I saw, dozens and dozens of pickup trucks with, explicatives against Joe Biden on the back of them, Trump flags, and some cases just dozens of American flags, which, is also just disturbing because essentially the message was clear. It was, this is my country. This is not your country. I own this. And so until we're ready to have that conversation, this is going to continue. What really is concerning to me as well is it's not just Democrats in Congress. I think there's a large percentage of Americans, even some of my colleagues in journalism, who are invested in some way in pretending that this isn't the threat that it is. That is the real concern. Because, the Trump voters who are not going to get on board with democracy, they're a minority. You can marginalize them long term. But if we don't...
I want you to hear that last little part right there. You can marginalize them long term. That's what this is all about. They want to marginalize 75 million Americans that voted for Donald Trump. They want to marginalize us. They're scared of us. If you have an American flag, it is because you're a white supremacist. It's absolutely insane. What all of this is truly about, ladies and gentlemen, is the Democrats cannot run on their record. They cannot run. They only have two cards they can play, race card and Trump card. And this whole January 6th thing is all about playing both of those, mainly the Trump card, because they cannot run on their record. What the heck are they going to run on? But listen to this. The Senate, back to this article. Cynically, and I'm part of it, I got a Trump thing and an American flag on my truck, so you better watch the heck out. Cynically, it makes sense for Fox to let Carlson doggedly pursue these claims, even though they're dangerous and false, because the network... So is it dangerous and false to say that MAGA hat wearing people beat a police officer to death with a fire extinguisher? How many people right now in America, if you polled them, would answer yes or no? Was a police officer beat to death on January 6th, a Capitol police officer with a fire extinguisher? I'd be willing to bet you that about half the people, maybe quite a bit more, would say, yes, that happened. When guess what? It didn't happen at all. It's a total lie. And the mainstream media, like Joe and Mika that are on there, continue to push that lie out there. It's just, but they're going to talk about Tucker Carlson. Right? And it just gets me. It says here, because the network, talking about Fox success, is more tied to luring a narrow slice of viewers who want precisely this style of content than want what anyone else might think. A thin thin slice. You can't get more thin than the ratings of NBC and CNN. It just, when you compare them to Fox's network, they just don't even compare. It's unbelievable that they would literally call Fox a thin slice when Tucker Carlson gets millions. I think he's averaging about 2 million people. How many shows on NBC or MSNBC news programs do you think get 2 million viewers? I'd say none of them. Rachel Maddow used to when she was pushing the Russia hoax. You know, wow, they need Trump back, right? Modern conservative media dates to August 1st, 1988. That's probably true because this is what they say. When Rush Limbaugh took the national airwaves by storm, in the process blazing a trail for an entire genre of programming. And they are right about that. Rush Limbaugh, man, we miss him. I put that picture up on purpose because there's two people that the left absolutely cannot stand. And one of them is Rush Limbaugh, and the other is Melania Trump pinning the Medal of Freedom on them. What a great night that was. But instead of celebrating it, they just look at it and, oh my God, we got to get that SOB out of the White House. And man, I hope that cancer kills him. You know that's what they were saying when they talk about praying all the time, praying, God, take him now. But I tell you, I want to give credit where credit is due. There is no doubt in my mind that if it weren't for the likes of Rush Limbaugh, really him himself, none of this would be possible. What we're doing right now wouldn't even be happening. So I tip my hat to the Godfather. In 2021, back to this article, it says, however, no conservative outlet or host has the luxury due to proliferation of right-wing media. Now, I guess they're talking about us, Billy Bob. You hadn't met my sidekick. This is Billy Bob Bass. He keeps me straight on the show. He's got a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. We're determined to stay in the social media public square no matter what. So we need you to like what we're doing, share what we're doing. You got to be more proactive if you want to watch programming like us. You got to invite other people to listen, email people, all that kind of thing. Tune in every chance you get. But check out, the opportunities you have before you. Like I tell you about Big Daddy Guns and all that. We're going to talk about another one in just a minute. But they say, let me read this again here because I want to make a point. In 2021, however, no conservative outlet or host has that luxury, talking about Rush Limbaugh's monopoly of it, due to a proliferation of right-wing media. And man, there used to be this thing about procreation, proliferation, all that. The procreating part of me is probably behind me. I'm not looking to have more children, grandchildren is good. But what I really want, I want me some proliferation. I am ready to proliferate everywhere you can. So won't you please help me? Won't you help? Won't you help? Won't you help me? I mean, there I am, me and my little sidekick, Lizzie, my little dog. Don't I look like one of them commercials where they say, for 19 cents a day, you can make a difference in this young man's life? So all I'm asking is to, check out Big Daddy Unlimited, link up there. I've got to show you another one. Spread our show in far and wide. Help me proliferate, because that's what I'm trying to do. Anyway, back to this show. Back to this story anyway. While Fox News had the conservative cable market mostly to itself for its first 15 plus years, they just celebrated 25, by the way, years on the air, competitors have since jumped into the fray, and they list them here like OAN, Newsmax, and all that. A pre-existing conservative media platform launched Newsmax TV. Other players have plunged into a digital video streaming service. This is what Tucker's videos are on, the Fox Nation, I think they call it, and streaming space, including Blaze TV, which is a merger of Glenn Beck and the Blaze and Mark Levin's Critical or CRTV. And I just say to them out there, if you're out there, take me. Won't you help me? Join, because I mean, if you want to know what my show is all about, I haven't said this in a while, but I say it bears repeating. I think of myself as being seriously entertaining. I'm a little bit John Wayne, a little bit Mark Twain, and probably a lot Duck Dynasty, that kind of thing. Somebody said, hey, that guy's a hillbilly. And they're partially true, but there are no hills where this Billy comes from. Just no mountains anyway, just maybe a little molehills. Back to this story. While those competitors So what they're talking about, if you're just tuning in, is what we're talking about is the left is just coming down heavy on Tucker Carlson for his 3-part series on Fox Nation about the January 6th day. So that's where we're at. Back to this story. While these competitors are no match for Fox individually, the network would be foolish to ignore them. Many are growing fast and are offering conservative and Republican, talking about this competition for Fox, conservative and Republican views, the content they want in 2021, the reddest of meat and lots of it. So that's what they're saying. It's just a thin slice. It really doesn't represent America, but it's a hungry, bloodthirsty bunch, so to speak. And I think we have an answer to what NBC is saying here, as well as many others. Let's play what I think is the best answer we could give progressive Democrats.
The Democrats have to now decide whether they will continue defrauding the public with ridiculous bullshit.
Nobody says it quite like Donald Trump. The answer to the question, do I miss you, sir? Yes, we absolutely miss you. We need you back. Thank God. Thank God that Donald Trump is endorsing in the primaries so we can rid ourselves of these rhinos. He's doing a tremendous public service. Whether or not he actually runs again in 2024, Donald Trump is engaged, and I am grateful for it. Carlson, back to this article, has lost blue chip advertisers and generated less advertising revenue, according to this opinion piece, in recent years thanks to his scandal-prone, bigoted rhetoric. I'm going to call what Donald Trump just said. That is total BS, complete BS. He lost his advertisers due to the relentless cancel culture. That's what it is, because the left is better. You know, the right, people like me, if I don't like something, I may actually watch it. Some of us are sicker than others. I watch a lot of stuff as a public service so you don't have to. You know, I watch Joe Biden's town hall meetings so you don't have to, so we can talk about it. But I understand the average person might not want to. Guess what there is? There's a little thing called a remote. You know, if you've got an old TV, you can still change. You can change the channel, for God's sakes. If you don't like what's happening, change the channel. But that is not what the left is about. Not only do they not want you to change the channel, they want you not to be able to watch it at all. So, and it's like that way on every single issue. You want to practice your Second Amendment rights and arm yourself. It's not enough for them to say, well, that's not me. They want to take your gun. You know, if you want to watch John Martin Talks, and I'm glad you do, they want to take me off the air, and they have done. Thank God for a place like Rumble, because Rumble has become the free speech zone, and we're glad to be live streaming on there every single day, because free speech is dead when it comes to the left. This is a question I would love to ask maybe the writer of this article. Is there any of the 10 amendments, let alone all amendments of the Constitution, any of the Bill of Rights, as we love to call it, that you actually still believe in? Because they obviously don't believe in free speech. They want to cancel culture, Tucker Carlson. Think about this. They're trying to get little old me every day, let alone Tucker Carlson. But they don't want to change the channel. They want you not to watch it. It's just absolutely insane. And we have to jointly fight against it and stand up. So I appreciate Tucker Carlson. But advertising, have me on your show, sir. If you know Tucker, give him a call. I'd love to be on. But advertising revenue is only part of Fox's profitability. I want you to listen to this, because this right here, this next paragraph, is absolutely true in general. But here's the thing. I'll give you the bottom line before we read it. Every one of these networks is doing exactly this. They couldn't survive without it. But this is what they accuse Fox of doing. But advertising revenue is only part of Fox profitability. Popular channels charge cable providers a fee for every subscriber in exchange for the ability to air their programming. CNN, I hate to whisper it to you, like, what has Biden do? Hey, CNN wouldn't exist without that. If they depended on their actual viewers, they wouldn't exist. Fox News is able to charge companies $1.72 per subscriber, according to 2020 Variety Report. The result, according to 2020 Financial Times reporting, Fox News made more from these fees in 2020, $1.6 billion, than from advertising, $1.2 billion. I'm sure that's probably correct or close to it. Newly released earnings info reveal an even more pronounced split. Here's the thing about it. Like I just told you, they all do this. Now, places like CNN may or may not have more advertising. I really don't know. But I can tell you, if it weren't for them seeing them in like airports and bars and stuff like that, they would not exist. Because they didn't, I think in the month of October it was, or maybe it was August. There was a report that came out within the last couple of months. I talked about this. I told you how to see my podcast. That there was not one single program on CNN that reached 1 million viewers. Not a single one. They would not survive. And MSNBC is not much different. Rachel Maddow is praying that Trump stays and comes back on the scene. The business model makes Carlson, talking about Tucker Carlson, hugely valuable to Fox. In recent weeks, he generated either his best ratings or second highest ratings. He's the number one show behind the roundtable show, The Five. So The Five is doing well. If you haven't seen that Gutfeld show, that's a late night show on 11 o'clock. I'm usually asleep, but I DVR it. You really ought to check out Gutfeld. It's pretty good. Pulling in more than 3.2 million viewers, The Five did, per night in the third quarter. Bringing in more viewers allows Fox to charge cable companies more money and dissuades them from ever dropping the channel. In other words, free enterprise, the capitalist system actually works. Not to mention that we won in Virginia. We won in Virginia, and they hate that. And I've been telling you this just came out last week. Florida has turned red. We are officially a red state. There are more registered Republicans than the Democrats for the first time in history. We are winning, and they hate us for it. A subscription platform, Fox Nation, launched in November 2018 and charges $5.99 per month to subscribe. I'm not putting an advertisement. I'm just reading the article. Again, popularity and passion matter more than advertisers. As John Finley, an executive who oversaw the launch of the streaming service, acknowledged in 2018 interview, Fox Nation doesn't have to worry as much about advertising revenue, but the service is crucial to long-term future of Fox. I don't doubt this because it's a hedge against cord cutting. In other words, being deplatformed, which will reduce the revenue from those cable carriage fees. Cord cutting, cancer cultures. BDU is actually Big Daddy Unlimited. I can tell you, I can't tell you too much about it, but I talked about the excluded app. If you haven't gotten it yet, go to your app store, spell excluded by dropping the E, put the big X up there, excluded app. They are working on the very same thing because of cord cutting and cancel culture. They're trying to make sure that there is a platform for voices like mine that can't be cut. And that pisses them off, man. It puts a target on our back. Rein Carlson in and risk alienating viewers, that's what they're saying Fox could do, who unlike a decade ago now have other options, which while such a calculation is cynical, according to this writer, for a reported news network, they all do it. They all are jealous of Fox and could do great damage to American democracy, right? Like the Russia hoax lying about it and that kind of thing. Conservative media remains, as always, all about dollars and cents. All about dollars and cents. As opposed to, I guess, what NBC is selling, dollars and no cents. I guess that kind of explains why they're so in favor of Joe Biden. Have you seen this meme? There are some really creative people out there. That may be a little bit vulgar, but I got to tell you, I never claimed to be a family show. It is funny, man. Guess which one is which? I'm giggles, I guess. NBC needs DJT. They don't want to admit it. All right, we're going to move on to our next story, but before opportunities, I appreciate our audience. We're growing every day. We're on more platforms. I want to say thank you. And the best way I can say thank you is to give you something absolutely free. Go above the video and check out the link johnmartinhealth.com. That's johnmartinhealth.com. Click on that link, follow the directions, and you will get a $50 value, absolutely free gift from me, a bottle of zinc and a bottle of vitamin D3. Because one of the things we learned that I think we should all agree on the pandemic, however you label it, is we all need to be healthier. And nothing says health better than go to johnmartinhealth.com, click on it, follow the directions, get your free zinc, your free D3, absolutely free. That rhymes, right? All right, let's move on to our next story. And I got to tell you, I agree with this story, and it's by a hardcore progressive Democrat, David Axelrod. I agree with him almost 100% on this, but nonetheless. Opinion piece, Biden's peacock moment from CNN by David Axelrod. There's Joe Biden is happy, man. He's happy right now. It's a happy Joe. He's not crumbling Joe, falling. He's happy Joe. And the Republicans have made it for him. If you don't know who David Axelrod is, you might have seen him of late on CNN. He is really the architect behind Barack Obama. Everybody has somebody special behind him. I got to tell you, David Axelrod is a genius. And he is excellent at what he does. I don't agree with him politically, but he is a master political scientist and knowing how to craft messages and reach people. You know, I give credit where credit is due as a political junkie. David Axelrod, when it comes to simply getting the message out and knowing how to reach people, is the master of it. So I take his opinions very seriously, and he's written this piece. Make sure we get the publication right. On CNN, he's a contributor to CNN. He's one of the few people that actually contributes to CNN. I like listening to him. As I said, I don't agree with him, but I'm listening to a genius when I'm listening to him. Politics can be a fickle, this is David Axelrod. Politics can be fickle and unforgiving business, as a friend once told me after he lost re-election. One day you're a peacock, and the next day you're a feather duster. He's absolutely right about it. And he says the reverse can be true. There is no doubt about that. President Joe Biden, these are Axelrod's words, began this week as a feather duster. In other words, he was a S show. There ain't no doubt about it. Whether the assessment was fair or not, strong Republican showings in Virginia, I think it was a fair assessment, in Virginia and elsewhere were widely seen as an early report card for the Biden and the Democrats, and the grades weren't good. The Democrats, ladies and gentlemen, they were reeling by any account whatsoever. They were reeling after Virginia. They were at each other's throats. Republicans, though, and this is why I say Axelrod is right, but it pisses me off. Republicans, though, gave Joe Biden a lifeline. And I'm not really shocked. I'm not surprised. I'm disheartened a little bit by it. But bipartisanship. We talk about, I know what the textbook version of bipartisanship, but if you're new to the show, first of all, howdy, how are you, where you been? You're in the right place now, not politically correct. But bipartisanship, as I say, I know what the definition is supposed to mean, but let me tell you what it really means. It means Republicans cave. Every time, plain, pure, and simple. Tell me one time where Republicans were adamantly for something, Democrats were adamantly opposed to them, and the Democrats said, you know, them old effers over there, they're actually right. We're going to come to the Republican side. It never happens, but constantly you'll have a thing where Republicans, we ain't never going to go for this. We're going to stand our ground. And then the next thing you know, they're caved into the Democrats. This is exactly what happened. It's what Axelrod is talking. It made Biden go from a feather duster to a peacock, man. He's right. As always, politicians, back to Axelrod's words, as always, politicians and the commemorate, talking about himself, and yes, I, talking about himself, raise my hand here, were uncharitable with their diagnosis and generous with their advice. So he's saying he was joining the chorus of beating on Biden. He said, too woke, too weak, talking about Biden, too mired in internal squabbling, talking about the Democrats in general, as two major pieces of legislation making up a significant portion of Biden's agenda stalled in Congress, Democrats narrowly control. He is exactly right about that. The Democrats were on the edge, fighting among themselves, and the Republicans gave them, I think it was 13 of them, because the Senate had already passed it, and 19 of them, and the House Democrats gave the Democrats a victory and thus propped up a failing administration. Moderates, back to Axelrod's words, moderates complained Biden had been led astray by progressives. Progressives complained Biden had been throttled by moderates. They, being the Democratic Party, was in disarray. He goes on to say, meanwhile, Americans still reeling from the effects of bruising pandemic were asking, in the words of an old country tune, for a little less talk and a lot more action. He's spot on about this. That's what, and they gave Biden a victory. They being the Republicans, man. I mean, that's why we need Donald Trump to identify these rhinos. He's endorsing in the primaries. Great public service no matter what else he does. When in doubt, vote anybody that Trump hasn't endorsed out. Let me just tell you, if I could do one vote and we flush them all, I would. It's a victory, back to this story, it's a victory for the country. These are Axelrod's words, country, and for Biden, who was often ridiculed by a skeptical left for expressing his willingness to work across party lines. The bill passed the Senate in August with 19 Republicans, so there's not going to be a filibuster. It's done. And what they did the other night is over. On Friday, it took the support of 13 House Republicans. I have them listed, by the way, on my Facebook page. All you got to do is look for the picture of Donald Trump in red, white, and blue, and I have listed the rhinos in that voted for it. Get rid of all of them. I'm just telling you. I said Republican who undercut Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. I don't totally trust him, but he seems to be saying the right things right now. To help offset the loss of 6 progressives, you know, the squad basically, unhappy the larger social spending and climate action was but not brought forth simultaneously. It was a victory, bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, it was a victory for the Dems, but not the nation. As I keep telling you, my only political goal is to stop the progressive takeover of this country, period. So what doesn't matter, it's probably not fair, but it don't matter if you're running for outhouse, White House, everything in between. I want to stop the progressive takeover of this nation, and period, because nothing else really matters if we don't. And these Republicans, by their bipartisanship, meaning they caved into these Democrats, have stabbed anybody who believes in America first in the back, period. There's no other way to look at it. Well, we only got a few minutes left. Let me just close the show by telling you this. What we have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to become proactive citizens. You know, that's why I battle ignorance and apathy every day. Thomas Jefferson famously said that if you want to be both ignorant and free, you want what never was and never will be. So what we have to do is educate ourselves and others. We have to motivate ourselves and others. We have to activate ourselves and others. And when the time comes, we have to eliminate those that are standing between us, the American people, the America First agenda, and saving this republic from the takeover of these progressive leftists. And I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about voting. And that means voting these rhino rats out as well. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to all our social media sites, like them and share them with others. Look above the video, click on the link johnmartinhelp.com. Get your free gift right here. Also remember BDU, your Second Amendment headquarters. Join that so you can get the savings. I want you to have them. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation because, man, she needs it, deserves it more than ever. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day. Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. I'm really excited to talk to you about Tucker Carlson here in just a minute. We got a story about him. I'm asking this question: is he courageous patriot or right-wing hack? And let me tell you, so you don't misunderstand me, I'm voting on the courageous patriot, but there's an opinion piece here that kind of makes it out that he is somewhat of a right-wing hack. I'm a big fan of Tucker's. We're going to talk about him in just a moment. And then Joe Biden, this is coming to you from none other than David Axelrod. I'll tell you about David Axelrod in just a minute, but he's written an opinion piece, and it's pretty good. I agree with a lot of it, unfortunately so, and you'll understand why I say that in just a minute. But he is basically saying that Joe Biden is having his peacock moment. In other words, he's all bright and bushy-tailed, and who gave it to him? The Republicans in Congress. That's who, and we're going to talk about that. But before we go any further,